Good evening and welcome to the Garfield Heights City School District Special Board Meeting Work Session on Monday, May 13th, 2024. I call the meeting to order. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes, here. Can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda? So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Daniels and second by Ms. Cox. Can I get roll call, please?
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes. All right, next on our agenda is a presentation from Mr. Sharp from Squire Patton Boggs.
I'm supposed to stand.
You can stand wherever you want. The camera will get you.
It's like the old municipal stadium, we got the pillars in the way, so I'll try to slice it fine. Nice to see everyone again. I was out, last time we were talking about tax levies, and that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. So I'm Mike Sharp from Squire Patton Boggs and assist the school district with bond counsel and tax levy matters. So I thought I'd start with some background, bring us back to where we were, cover what the matters are to discuss tonight, and then answer any questions if that makes sense. So by way of background, the school district has two different, what I would call fixed term levies that are enumerated by the number of years that they can run. Both are called emergency levies because that's the statutory term, doesn't necessarily mean there's an emergency. I think we've all been through that discussion. One of the levies is in the amount of $5,350,000, so $5,350,000, and it expires at the end of collection year 25, so with taxes that collect next year. You have a second similar levy that expires in collection year 27, and we're a little ahead of the game for that one, and other than a light mention, no, that's really not the one before us. So it's the first levy, the $5,350,000, that the renewal of which was on the ballot in March. At the time, I came out and talked to you about different options that are available for that, and I think we're probably sitting right where we were back in March, but one election forward, which is, I think conceptually there are three different things you could do with that levy. I suppose the fourth is to do nothing, but let's put that one to the side. The first is you can renew it, and renew it is essentially add water, rinse, repeat, another hopefully 10-year period. There is a type of levy called a substitute levy that's available that some districts use that take the place of emergency levies, mostly designed to capture, for those districts which are experiencing significant growth and to try to capture some of that. And then thirdly, there would be the possibility of combining the two different emergency levies that you have. That was what was done back in the mid-2010s or so that resulted in us having a $5,350,000 levy. That one used to be in two smaller chunks. And there are advantages that, of course, and the disadvantage primarily is that the more eggs you start putting in the basket, the more high risk the elections become, and you start at some level you imperil your operations. So when we talked about this last time, it seemed, and I don't know of anything that's different, that the clear option would be to just seek a renewal. Before March, I would have said renewals are often favorably received because there's nothing new that's being asked for. It's basically can we please continue to have what we already have. The March election was the first election at which you could have sought a renewal. These particular kinds of levies, and it's arcane, I know, but you can go as early as the primary, the year before you last collected, then the general, which is the one coming up, and then either of the two elections next year. Unfortunately, the General Assembly now has cut us down to only the primary and to the general. So this would be the second of the fourth available elections. It was, I think it was very prudent to try. Most districts do try to do their renewals at the first opportunity. Candidly, March of '24 was just a tough night for a lot of school districts across not only the area, but I think across Ohio, and we can each have our personal theory as to why that might be. I think a lot of school districts feel that some of the facts that were present that led to March looking like it looked like may not look like that come November. It'll be very quick, very clearly be a very, very different voter mix. So in any event, I think that the fairly straightforward recommendation is to just simply do what we did for the March election and try that for November. And if successful, that would renew it for 10 years, beginning after the current one expires. So the current version of it would go through 25, and then we'd be going plus 10. So you'd be looking at something that would carry us significantly into the future. I'll pause. That's a lot of information in a short period of time, but I'm glad to answer any questions or revisit what we've done or look ahead.
Just a question. You said that we have 2024 the fall, we have 2025 spring,
Mm-hmm.
and 2025 fall.
Correct.
Not that I want to go out that far,
Understood.
but those are our options.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it used to be, going back not that many years, that special elections were available. And so you had a February going back a little farther, and in August, the General Assembly has pared those back. And so now you're left with primaries. Of course, the primary this year was a presidential, so it fell in the weird March date. Next year, we'll go back to May.
And another question, and I'm not sure if you have this answer, if this is a Phil question. How much is it going to cost us to put this on the ballot?
I would say definitively the Board of Elections is the party to answer that, but for a general election, it should be nearly costless. It should just be literally the out-of-pockets.
Yeah, I can look at what they charged us the last time we put it on a general, but I think it was about $60,000 in this past March to put it on the special, or the primary election. But the presidential is a little bit different because we're, obviously the presidential will carry most of the cost for the county. We'll have, I can look at it, but it's not free.
It'll be
No,
less than $60,000?
I hope so. You know, we thought it wasn't going to be $60,000 for one ballot issue in March, and it cost around there. I can find that answer for you.
Board of Elections is your best source for that, but I would expect it to be significantly less because there are others who are firing up all of your precincts and bearing those costs.
Okay.
One thing I guess I'll mention, if you don't mind, is that don't be surprised by this. So the levy, as we mentioned, it's designed to raise $5,350,000 per year, and so the millage that we get back and which appears on the ballot is just a function of dividing that amount of money divided by your tax valuation. And so last time it was 13.67. Because your tax valuation has dropped just a bit with this tax year, even though we'll run this back but the recommendation is to run this back as a renewal, the millage number is going to be a little bit bigger. And I did the math at just the back of the envelope. I think it's going to look more like 13.9. Just didn't want you to be surprised because it's non-intuitive. People think, well, renewal, everything should be the same. But unfortunately, with the slight dip in tax valuation, it would be a slightly higher number, but designed to raise the same amount of money. And as that tax valuation number changes, as is the case already, as your tax valuation number changes and potentially positively, that will go the other direction. So it's a fixed amount of money. The higher the valuation, the less millage, and vice versa.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
One question for you, Mr. Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Option number 2, replacement and combo for 3. Those, if any school district went for a replacement levy for fixed sum levies like this, we would lose the opportunity to have the state rollback credits, correct?
Yeah, and in fact, this kind of levy, a replacement, is not even a possibility because that only relates to levies that are subject to the inflationary reduction factors, and this kind of levy is not.
So our current fixed sum levies, both are approved for the state rollback credits, homestead exemption, and the 10% rollback. So our taxpayers only pay 87.5% of the full collection. The state sends credits through for the next 12 and a half. The problem is if this is not renewed, any new levy we put on is not subjected to those rollback credits. The taxpayer we would have to ask for more automatically just to make up that coverage for it. So that's all it
Exactly.
is. Levies are fun.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So, I do have a question, President.
Ms. Daniel?
Just for clarification, to piggyback off of Mr. Oko's question, our residents that participate in the homestead tax credit and rollback credit, how does this impact the renewal of this levy?
No impact at all. This renewal will, this levy is a qualifying levy for that purpose, and this renewal will not change that status.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much, and of course, if there are any that occur to you after the fact, just work through Bill, and I'll be happy to answer it when it comes up.
All right, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and we will now go to our second presentation for the evening, and that is our 5-year forecast.
Oh, fun stuff.
Yeah. All for that. Probably set to.
Yep, awesome. All right. Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Are we excited for our May forecast update?
Yes.
This is like the Super Bowl for me. I want you all to know that. So, I was so excited because I was able to have a high school student shadow me who wants to be a treasurer. And on the first day she said, no, I want to be a mechanical engineer, after she got into financials with me. So, bad omen on my part, right? Right? She's one of the smartest students I've ever met, and she understood tax levies and values, and I was just like, it took me years to understand. It took you 2 days. You sure you don't want to do this? But anyway, Skylar Pierce helped me put this presentation together as part of her senior project. She's participating in districts for track, for shot put and discus, so she's representing us there. I'm going to represent us here, and we're going to get right into it. So why do we do the forecast? We have to do it by law twice a year, November and May. We have to do it so that I can sign the 412 certificate so that we can pass our audits. And third, most importantly, it's a reflection of our financial, outlook and picture for the community and for the board and for everyone that we work with. This is a district initiative. This is not something that I do by myself. I work with my buddy here, Dr. Reynolds, and all the directors to put together what we need to do to support our students and what resources we need to pool to make that happen. So, without further ado, let's look at our current fiscal year projected financial analysis. You can see that our general fund revenue, 46.6 million, projected expenditures in the general fund, 42.7 million. We're having a good year. 3.8 in surplus. But let's not get ahead of ourselves with that. Some of the factors, we have ESSER money, federal dollars. Federal dollars we have this year. A lot of that has been offset, but we've been working on a plan to make sure that that doesn't come back and eat up that $3.8 million next year. Our analysis for our revenue, you can see that $17.7 million come from our property taxes. State funding is $27.1 million, and all other revenue, tuition payments from other school districts. We put in our catastrophic cost. We do interest earnings on our investments that we have been able to put away this year is a small portion of that. Please note that the majority of our funding comes from the state, and we will get into why that is so important for our school district and why it's so unique for our school district. So another graph for you guys. Just look at the bar graph here. You can see that it doesn't change from 2023 into 2028 as it pertains to real estate and state funding. In fact, state funding takes up a little bit more of it. What is the meaning behind all of that? Real estate revenue usually stays pretty flat. We don't collect more, we don't collect less, unless there's a massive change like a 2008. We go through our reevaluation period every 3 years, reappraisal and then an update. So every 6 years, every 3 and then 6, we go through that cycle. We're looking at a 25% increase in property tax valuation for Garfield Heights is what we put in our assumption this year. What does that mean for us? We are just above that 20 mil floor, that elusive 20 mil floor. Now, if we did hit that 20 mil floor, our real estate revenue would jump. Because at some point, we can't go below that 20 mil floor, and instead when valuations hit it, it automatically goes right to the property taxpayers of our district. But we're not there with a 25% valuation. We're right above it. Like we are at 20.08. We will hit it in another 3 years after this. In 4 years we'll hit it. Let's talk about our state revenue because it is our largest revenue stream. We're part of the Fair School Funding Plan. We're a formula district. What that means is that every student that we have, that we gain or lose, directly impacts our funding. You can either be a guaranteed district, or a formula district. There is no cap district anymore. We're a formula district. You'll see that the green is our restricted funding. So what does that mean? Restricted funding are things like economic disadvantaged. So we're 100% economic disadvantaged by the state. So all of our students qualify for that. Health and wellness, targeted assistance. Our school district qualifies for that. That's why the jump there from 22 to 23 when they updated the inputs for the formulas there. Now you'll see it's not going up. Rather, it's going to hit a peak and then it's going to start to drop. Why is that? It's directly tied to how many students we have in the district. So, and we'll get there in a minute. We have another slide for that. I'm not going to jump the gun. But let's talk about our property taxes because this is the most important topic tonight for us. Our property taxes stay pretty flat and stagnant. 2022, we saw an increase. Why is that? We came out of COVID and delinquencies were paid for the county. So they caught up for it. We had 102% payment for it rather than the 98% the year before. That's why it jumped. You'll see that 2024 and 2025, there's a zero. We're not getting any more or any less than what we're asking the taxpayers for. 2026, like Mr. Sharp just alluded to, is when our renewal levy stops collecting. 2025 is the last collect year. 2026, you'll see why is it not the full 5.375 million? It's because we get half the year. The other half will come in 2027, and then you'll see in 2028 there, the combination of both of those renewal levies rolling off the books really hits it. I mean, we're looking at close to, what looks like close to 50% drop. I mean, we go from $17 million to $10 million, $10.7 million in renewal in property taxes. That is something that our school district, no school district of our size can really overcome without truly doing things that we're not even going to get into tonight because we have some work to do, right? So we're going to jump now to our expenditures. A little bit easier than revenue. We know where our expenditures are. We're a people-based business. Personnel costs 34 million. 24.6 of that is in salaries, 9.3 is in benefits. 80% of our expenditures go to people. Our product is education. It should be that. That's a normal school district. Purchase services, about 14.8% at 6.693 million. And then all other expenditures, supplies, utilities, basically supplies and utilities, and any capital expenditures we make are less than 2% of our overall budget for the year. Overview of expenditures again, you'll see that our revenues are not climbing. They're not using that step models I like to see. You see step up. Why is it stepping up like that? Well, we have 2 unions and they negotiate every 3 years. They get a raise every year. They get base and step. We can't argue with that. That's what it is. So you see that we did take a drop here in 2024 because Dr. Reynolds and myself, we looked at the school district, look at what we're doing with the ESSER money. We said, look, we can't sustain. We did it. We took a step back, but it doesn't matter if we take a step back. If we kept it as it is this year, it's going to grow in 25. It's going to grow in 26 because these are expenditures that are baked in automatically. Our benefits are growing. The healthcare inflationary market is insane. It is the one thing, it is the hardest expenditure for school districts to control is healthcare expenditures because we have the market is so tight with it. But we're in the consortium, Suburban Health Consortium, which helps alleviate that in the consortium pool. So we're not at risk of taking a 25% increase. We usually know we're within the 6 to 13, which is the 13 last year. 6 to 13%. So we're in a risk pool based system. Again, just another look at salaries in depth. In your packet, you have in-depth look at things like salaries that break out what makes up the salaries for the school district. The majority of our salaries come in the form of teachers. That's supposed to be how it is. Teachers are the ones that teach our students. But you'll see here again that step action with expenditures is always going to be that way. Unless we make significant cuts year after year and accumulate that over time. But the way they're doing, we're basing our assumptions off of we have what we have now, and this is what we're looking forward with because these are the things we know. I would be doing a disservice to you to say, Dr. Reynolds, we're going to cut 30 teachers right now. I'll put that in the forecast. And I come back to you in November, and we didn't cut 30 teachers because we couldn't, because we need to educate our students. This is at this moment. Benefits, the same thing. You see the drive up. We're hoping that the assumption is not a 13% every year. We're hoping that it kind of deflates down into that 7 to 8%. But our assumption is we have to be conservative as a school district, knowing that is this the new norm after COVID, or are things going to drop off as we go? We just don't know yet. We're only 2 years out of that COVID period. Purchase services, our third largest expenditure group, is 14.8%. It'll drop to 14.5%. You see that 2021, it was 9.9 million. Does anyone know why it was so high then? Asher? No. Good guess though. Anybody have a guess? No?
We were doing a lot of purchasing services during COVID, during that time.
Yes. That was one. And two, we used to account for tuition payments to other school districts.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd get money in for kids that, say, went to Maple Heights, and then we have to pay them directly from our thing. So that's why the drop is so significant in 2022. But you'll see that it's gradually increasing again. We base that off of an inflationary percentage. 2 to 3% a year. Things are going to get more expensive, especially things like transportation, which everybody needs. Now, Miss King, this is one of your favorite slides.
I almost fell out my chair.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm talking so loud, I'm sorry. Days cash on hand. This is the graphic where we need to get really serious about this. The GFOA says that you should have 2 months cash on hand, 60 days. 2024, right now we're at 91, we got 3 months. Next year, 3 months. 2026, 3 months. But guys, let's look at 27 and 28. That drops fast. What does that mean? If we get to 0, we don't have money to make payroll. That's what that means. How much cash do I have in the bank? If I stop getting money today, how much do I have to keep it going, to keep it afloat? So that kind of coincides with district educated enrollment. We had a anomaly year that I believe we had. We had 250 students around leave between 2023 and this year in 2024. It would almost be crazy for me to think that we're going to lose 250 kids a year. If I put that in our forecast, our 2028 number would be about 1,800 kids in Garfield Heights. I mean, and then we're talking guarantee, we are talking serious craziness. You'll see the step down here is something that we need to look at as a school district and say, how can we kind of fix that? This is not unique to our school district, though. Northeast Ohio is facing an exodus of children from public schools. Now, whether that's because of the vouchers or whether it's because students just didn't come back to school after COVID really pushed that forward for everybody, and including us. Now, per pupil general fund expenditures jumped to 22,000 in 2028. Why is that? Does anyone have an answer for me? All right, I'll answer it. As our enrollment drops, our expenditures jump. We have less students, so in the eyes of the state of Ohio, we're a wealthier district. We're spending $22,000 per kid. But what does that mean for our state funding since we're a formula district? We lose kids, we get less funding, we have less enrollment, now we're spending $22,000 per student on money that we're losing from the state. So again, it's that all the things are coming out as full force, district-wide. I like to use this slide because what does it take to daily cost to educate a Garfield Heights student? $87. 72% of that comes from state, federal, business, taxes. 28% comes from homeowners in Garfield Heights. So we are funded the majority by the state and the federal government.
Can you go back?
Yes, ma'am. Of course. And finally, I'd like to give you just a financial overview of where we're at. Graph on the left, projected revenue versus expenditures. Blue bar is total revenue, orange is total expenditures. You'll see in 2026 we have a little bit of a surplus there. Remember, this is with the levy renewals. This is with the levy renewal. Even with the full levy renewal, we still have work to do in 27 and 28. Our cash balance by 2026 is $12.64 million. Seems like a lot of money, right? That's 20% of our expended total general fund expenditures. And if you remember, our days cash, we get close to a month in 2028 with $12 million in the bank, 12.6. With the levies all passed, we have a cash balance of $5.34 million in 2028. Again, why is that? We have union negotiations coming up. Things are more expensive. We're not going out and asking for new money. And with enrollment dropping, we're certainly not getting any extra money from the state. And we all have to remember we are at the mercy of the state of Ohio when they implement the fair school funding plan. They could come back next year and say, we're not updating inputs and we're taking away transitional aid guarantee. Good luck. And that could be something they do. I hope not, but again, that's where we are. So, final takeaways. Renewal levy revenue is a must to continue status quo operational functions. I quite literally mean status quo. What we're doing this year is what we need to, the levy will do just that. We're not doing anything more. We can't do anything more. We're just asking for what we need. What are our options with the loss of tax revenue? $2.5 million would have to come from personnel. As we discussed, 80% of our expenditures are personnel. We're talking teachers, admin, support staff. we'd have to pare back a lot of things, and we'd have to look at the district holistically again. Dr. Reynolds and his team, and we did transition the buildings this year, and we made significant attritional cuts. We'd have to cut by attrition again. But when you lose $5 million, 5.4 out of 17 total for property tax revenue, we have to look at some pretty serious cuts in the budget. And then finally, our enrollment data. We should always be monitoring our enrollment data. The downward trend is not something we want to continue to see, especially long term. We get into guarantee funding mode pretty soon, within 4 years. What does that mean? Well, no longer does one student equal more money or less money. It means we have so little students that the state is guaranteeing us a certain dollar amount from years before. And a district like us, there is no growth in revenue with that. And we certainly do not want to live in that arena when we're getting that close to that 20 mil floor, because it creates a myriad of options that puts our district and our community at stress with. So with that, like I said, this is my Super Bowl. I know it was doom and gloom, but I love doing it. So I'm open to any questions, concerns.
Are there any questions and or concerns for Phil?
I do. So a levy renewal will put us on track to continue to do the things that we've been doing.
Yes, sir.
Status quo.
Status quo. Yes. The state auditor does not allow us to say those type of things when we officially put it on the ballot.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Correct. But what we would ask the community is that simply continue funding us at where we're at. And we do not have to make the cuts that are severe enough that we are planning on seeing academic growth and achievement. We are this year. Dr. Reynolds, his team, we're looking forward to seeing that. The problem is, we have a really good year, and say we're a 3.5 star district, and the next year we lose all this funding. You gotta cut teachers. You gotta cut good teachers that do this. How do you maintain that? It's not sustainable. You can't sustain this on a bare bone. When you're starting to cut into the bone, you really can't sustain a quality education for students. We just don't have anywhere else to pull the resources from when it comes to property tax and this amount of renewal money. And I think we are trending that way, guys. I really do. Dr. Reynolds and I, we sit and we chat quite often about it. He teaches me about the academic side, and I lecture him on property tax, and he just falls asleep. But that's okay.
Any other, Ms. Thomas?
Well, first, I would like to say that I have never understood a 5-year forecast as I understood today.
Oh,
So
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And a few questions / comments. So, first, since we are not officially on the ballot as board members, we are able to share this presentation, share the facts,
Oh, yeah.
share the thoughts and importance of the.
Yeah, I mean, the auditors made it quite clear that the 5-year forecast and the messaging, my assumptions, should be used as exactly that. What happens if we cannot pass this levy?
Okay.
And this, it truly is. This is what happens. We lose 5.35 million. We have to cut personnel. We have to cut in critical personnel. We're not talking about support staff. We're talking about people to teach our kids, guys. So I think that's the goal here. We're not officially on the ballot. We have an attorney here with us who can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but this is what I understood from the auditors, is that use this presentation to outline what really happens if the community does not support the school district. And that's exactly what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With looking at our enrollment numbers, as a district, have we considered open enrollment? Dr. Reynolds, do you have any input on what those opportunities could look like if?
Yes, open enrollment would assist. What we have to do is we have to have a draw. There are a couple of different things that we are looking into being more of a draw for our school district. One is increasing what we've done academically, improving our efforts, which hopefully in the next few hours, we'll know at least the preliminary pieces. But also looking at some of our offerings that we currently have, like Music Express, our arts program. We've done a wonderful job with that. And also, we're looking into urban farming. That's an area that's a feeder for Ohio State and also with, I was getting ready to say North Carolina Central, but Central State, for Central State as well. And we've been looking in that there's a few folks in the area that we can partner with, and it's something that's really the hot item right now, and it'll allow us to stand out a little bit more. So that, considering open enrollment, would be a plus, but we need to do it right. There's some guidelines we have to provide for that. Open enrollment, just kind of a free-for-all, may create a problem. But if we're creating some criteria, I think that that will help us to increase enrollment as well.
Any other questions for Bill?
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels? Mrs. Daniels?
thank you. Again, this was a great presentation. I have to piggyback off of what Ms. Thomas said, just the graphs and the clarity. It really gave us some clarity. And just you providing a presentation, answering the questions that you know that we have as a board, prior to us even having an opportunity to ask them, is great, because a lot of the questions that we bring to the table are questions that our neighbors have, right? And if we have a hard time understanding it, you know, you're able to provide some clarity for the residents of this community, it is very helpful in them understanding the impact and what role is vital for them to play in order for us to have success in the school district. And just even looking at the piece with the non-renewal, you know, job, lack of teachers, meaning it impacts the growth of our students. And I think that's collectively what the community would like to see our school district to accomplish.
Yeah.
And we cannot afford to risk our future students. I mean, it's bigger than just our, for me, right, it's bigger than property value, making the neighborhood or community look better. I mean, each and every one of these students, these children, this is their education. And it is vital. It's bigger than the politics, it's bigger than, you know, whatever the other motives may be. These are our children's education, and they rely on us to ensure that they have a great education so they can be successful citizens and give back and be vital members of the community.
Yeah.
So it is just, we have to look at what it really boils down to.
Yeah.
Each and every one of the children in our district rely on us to give them the best education possible.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, communities like ours that have to carry on our back a little bit more than others, but our children deserve it. And I think we need to be willing to we have to find a place where we're willing to look at what it's really about and be willing to do what's best for our kids, which they're all of our kids in this community, so that we can have that, so they can give back and contribute in the future. But bringing up the enrollment piece, if I guess it's more to Dr. Reynolds. Do we know what our capacity is, right, to increase enrollment and maintain the services at the level we are? So, you know, classroom ratios, you know,
Yes.
are important.
Yes.
Transportation, or do we have the capacity? I know we need the the money, right? But sometimes, like, at what point do the number of the students and the money catch up? You know, because you showed us the graph where, you know, less students drop, we end up having to still spend the same money because we have to keep the same ratios, we have to keep the same number of buses running, you know, all those kind of things. How are we managing that piece, or do we know, have we looked at like the impact of an influx of students coming into our district?
Yeah, and a steady increase is what we're after.
Mm-hmm.
An influx overnight is not what we're after.
Okay.
Because that allows us to prepare, that allows us to increase our purchases if we need to get more buses, for instance. To get another bus, we need an extra bus because more kids are enrolled in the district. So what you look for in growth within the school district is growth in years and not just growth overnight. If we have a steady, just kind of a one-time just to hit, that impacts, but we are later able to make the adjustment. So what we are interested in is slowly increasing. That's why when we talk about the open enrollment piece, we want to make sure that we're doing with some criteria so we can control the growth. And not be in a situation where, okay, we just have to go ahead and stop enrollment for second grade or stop and close enrollment for fourth grade or something like that. A steady growth piece, and I think that with new facilities usually do that, and school districts that are able to build new buildings, sometimes they have enrollment that happens overnight, and most times they're able to handle those things. But for us, with the things that we've been able to do with a new field, for instance, thank you to the Browns, a new field, that gains that attention. With our academics increasing, that gains more attention, or parents even feeling more confident about the school district to allow their students to return back to our school district. That's the growth piece that we're after. But while we're trying to grow, we have to make sure that we're not increasing the number of employees on a high level, because it has to match our enrollment. And right now, it doesn't. It doesn't match the enrollment.
I would like to see us, make those efforts to get the kids that live in our community to come back to our school district. I know we had a Choose Garfield campaign at one point, trying to target and follow those families and have some direct contact with children we know live in our community, but it's not going to our school district. So I'm glad that you mentioned that we're just not kind of casting out open enrollment, but I would like to see us prioritize getting our students back, but also take advantage of the opportunities that open enrollment allows other districts to leverage too.
And again, I'll just quickly bring us back. Like Dr. Reynolds said, a hard spike in the other way up is not what we can't. There's no possible way for us to continue providing the same level of services. I mean, the infrastructure just can't. We can't take that kind of shot. What we truly want to see is, instead of losing 120 kids a year, maybe we lose 70, and then maybe we lose 30, and we kind of soften the curve and start moving it up. But I've learned so much. I'm the treasurer, but I tell you, I talked to Ms. Bezier, our teaching learning director. I talked to Dr. Reynolds, and I learned so much about the academic side of things. We can market this school district when we hit that 3-star, 3.5 star. I truly think when I walk through the buildings, and we'll go through the walkthroughs, and we have some great teachers in this school district, and our kiddos are reading, and I see it, and I'm not an educator. And it would be a true travesty to our students, our kids, and our community if we get there, if we're trending on the right path, and our renewal levy cannot support us. If one factor cannot support us in that. And that's the message of this forecast tonight is we have special kids, special teachers. It's a special district, right? We need to continue to market it as such. We can do this. And we are doing it. We put a lot of work in. You all have seen the work that's been going, and you've done it yourself. So that is the crux of our presentation tonight.
And I think that moving forward, I think we will be able to have a better handle on if the board decides to put the renewal levy back on the ballot.
Yeah.
I think we will be able to have a solid plan moving forward. We were able to identify some individuals that want to support us, and so I think we will be definitely this time in a better place moving forward. Any other questions for Phil? Well, you know, my overall concern is that we need to have money in the bank.
That's right.
We have to have money in the bank in case something, bless you, happens, that we are able to sustain the district. And we've had to do this before, we've had to move money over because we didn't get money from
Correct.
the state in time, so we had
Oh,
to
yeah.
move money so that we can pay,
Yeah.
you know, our staff,
Mhm.
and so we have to have money and
So
able to do that.
if we get to that 38 days cash, we will be
We won't.
doing that.
We won't.
We will not, but
We will not.
we will not. But I have to live in that mode, right, where this is what's happening to me. This is my life. But those December 3 payroll months with our bonds due, like those are the months that it's quite difficult when you don't have the cash on hand. The cash balance policy that I'm working on, that the state trade group has been pushing, is a policy that will tell us, you know, we need to have X amount of dollars in the bank at all times to be able to operate the district, like to just status quo functionality. Whether it's 10% of expenditures or 20% of expenditures, it's there so that in case something happens, we have the money. You know, our facilities are aging. We put a lot of money into them with ESSER, but they're still aging. The state doesn't see us the way they saw us in 20 years ago. You know, we have to make up 1,800 kids to be qualify for OFCC. The cards seem to be stacked against us, but we, Dr. Reynolds, our director team, we're looking at all the options. We know what we're facing, and that's the most important thing. There are no surprises on what's coming. We know what's ahead of us. We know what we have to do, and that's what we're here for. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right, so I'll wait for Phil to come back. All right, can I get a motion to approve the 5-year forecast as presented?
So moved. Second.
So that was moved by Heather Morrison and seconded by Ashley Thomas. Can I get roll call, please?
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. And now for discussion is our tentative agenda review. Is there any questions on the tentative agenda? Dr. Reynolds, I do have a question, under 11, I guess it's 11.1. Can you tell us a little bit more about how we plan to use the transition coordinator? It's a new
yes. Yes.
new position, but allocation of funds?
Yes, so the transition coordinator, or transition position is a typical position in school districts that allows for, in our special ed department, our kids who are transitioning into the real world, to allow them to work on certain skills and to connect with some companies out there where students can get some training. Usually what happens is we use a FTE from our SPED department and use an IS position in order to create a transition coordinator position. It's worked well in districts that I've been a part of, where kids really want to connect with that person in order to prepare for their next step, and that's what the position is.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I have a question about that.
Yes, Ms. Daniels?
So right now, I believe we're utilizing a Bernie Bodnar as our transition coordinator that she handles multiple districts. Will we still be utilizing that resource from CVCC?
Yes.
Or would this be in addition to, how does that work?
This would be in addition to. She has actually done a great job over there. I met her the last couple of days. I ran into her, just having brief conversations, but that will definitely continue, especially with those students who are enrolled in CVCC, and the other students who are not will be able to take advantage of the transition coordinator at the school building. So this is.
So she does handle non-CVCC students too, though?
Yeah, they'll still be. All of our students will definitely still be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are provided through the transition coordinator.
So will they be working like collaboratively? Have we kind of figured that out?
I think they're still trying to figure out exactly the details of how that will work between the two, but it is important for us to have someone who's not dedicated, but that are specific for our school district. Because I know she handles all, but there's a benefit to that as well because she already has connections with some of the businesses out there. So it's not a situation where we want to just kind of cut them off at all. We want to utilize that and just kind of enhance that as well for our kids who are in the district.
Yeah, because I know that my children participate with that. They start in 8th grade,
Okay.
connecting with the students, and she connects them with Ohio for opportunities with disabilities, start the job skill training. I mean, it's a vast amount of things, and financial resources
Yeah.
that are allocated. I know they have been able to pay for educational. I mean, it's a huge resource. So I hope that we're kind of collaboratively still working with them because they really have a solid resource system that actually we have underutilized as a district.
Any other questions about the tentative agenda?
Madam President,
Ms. Daniels?
what is the cutoff date for to receive resignations for our
It's usually around July 10th.
okay.
What is it this year?
It is July 10th.
Always July 10th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Is there no additional questions? We will move on to discuss the timeline for superintendent and treasurer evaluation. My goal is to have the framework of the evaluations out to everyone June 1st. That way it allows everyone several weeks to work on their feedback. That includes Dr. Reynolds and Phil, so everybody will have the document. I'm looking at June 22nd or June 29th as a retreat day. Can everyone take a look? That's of June. They're both Saturdays, I believe. The 22nd or 29th. Do those dates any of those dates work? I'm looking at Phil.
Both work for me. I'm gonna be selfish and say the 29th because I have fiscal year-end close, and I would ask if I could take action, if we could take action on that meeting to approve finalized amendments for the year. If we do it on the we can do it on the 22nd or the 29th, but
Okay,
I'll be opportunistic with it with you, Ms. King.
okay. Is the 29th good for everyone?
Do you have an approximate time? I have to run an event that day.
Morning, 9 to 1.
What time is your event, Ms. King?
Yeah.
The event begins at noon. So if anything, like, I could definitely be there the first few hours.
And it may be a 9 to 12. I was looking at the items that we would cover are the board, looking at the evaluations, looking at our goals, just to see where we're at with our goals as a board, getting an academic update from Dr. Reynolds, and any changes going into the new year, so we could be done by noon, and taking action.
I can do the 22nd too on my action. Don't worry about that part. Whatever works for you.
Does the 22nd work better for you?
It could. I can move, yeah, the 22nd kind of does work better.
Okay,
We can do the 22nd is good with me.
how's that for everyone else?
Works for me.
Works for me.
And then my goal is for us to be able to take action on the evaluations at our July board meeting, July 15th board meeting. To be able to hopefully offer these gentlemen raises during that time, depending on how we evaluate them. Any other questions about the timeline?
I do know that the timeline works better if we allow them to fill out their piece first.
That's what's gonna happen on June 1st. I'll be making that document available. That way everyone has 3 weeks, because they'll work on it and we'll also work on it ourselves, so we're all coming to the table with our input done. So that'll give everyone 3 weeks to work on it. Okay, and we just talked about 4.3. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see happen at the agenda? Again, what I had was, of course, the evaluation, us looking at where we are with our board goals, an academic update, and any changes for the new year, going into the new year. Is there anything else anyone would like to add to the agenda?
I think that's good agenda.
Okay. All right, we'll go into 4.4, and that is the NSBA conference update. Myself and Ms. Cox and Ms. Morrison were able to attend the NSBA conference in Dallas in April. I'll let the ladies talk first, and we'll share a little bit about what we took away from the conference. Ms. Cox, can you start?
Yes. Two things. I'll leave the special ed to Ms. Morrison. We attended a special ed session that was very interesting, but I'll share advancing a culture of gratitude, strategies to improve engagement and customer service, and that one sticks out to me because right now it's enhancing the student experience is a big deal at my place of employment, and I thought this was not only does it add value in my role as a board member, but even in my role outside. So a couple of notes that I took. Creating a culture of gratitude must start at the top, but once initiated, it can grow at every level. Praise contributes to school and work engagement as well as overall feelings of psychological safety. Establishing mechanisms of praise to be encouraged and shared among students and staff is the first step in fostering a system-wide culture of gratitude. We learn low-cost strategies for modeling, growing, and sustaining a culture of gratitude among staff and students with focus on fun appreciation. Example, system-wide school-based staff recognition program for employees who demonstrate outstanding customer service. The other session was the Ruby Bridges session. When I went into that, I didn't know much about Ruby Bridges. Ms. King kind of said, hey, this is going to be a good, she was making a big deal about seeing Ruby Bridges, so I was like, hey, let me go to that one. Ruby Bridges is an American civil rights activist. She was the first African-American child to attend formerly whites-only William Frantz Elementary School in Louisiana during New Orleans school desegregation crisis, November 14, 1960. She's also a subject of the 1964 painting, The Problem We All Live With by Norman Rockwell. And what she talked about her experience, and then she also talked about that being an activist wasn't her first choice. She was, I think she said flight attendant or a travel agent, and she traveled the world and realized that that wasn't her passion, and that's what kind of stuck out to me, because sometimes we do different things, but are we really doing what we're passionate about? Those are the two biggest ones. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Morrison?
It was amazing to listen to Ruby Bridges speak. I also enjoyed Timothy Shriver, also gave a speech. So yes, I attended disability rights for our children. I have 2 children on IEP, so, disability is key for me. So Manor School District, I'm not sure what state they're from, but their superintendent actually was a special education teacher. He wrote his dissertation to get his doctorate on special education. And so they just kind of, what I found important was that they talked about that we are not here to teach the easy kids, that we're here to teach all kids. And so he gave the example of they just stuck special education kids in his normal class. And so one time they came to him and he was like, what do you mean teachers have a choice of taking these children? Like, I just thought you put them in classes. Teachers shouldn't have a choice on what children they're teaching. And then I also liked that they talked about lesson plans should design our plans to include SPED students in general education on the front end. So when you're designing your lesson plan, include those students. Don't do it on the back end. So yeah, I just really enjoyed listening to the special education. I wanted to see how our districts kind of ranked with what was going on. So that's what I took from that.
Thank you. The one I want to focus in on is onboarding for school board success. And it was interesting, this was from a very large school district. And I want to say they were from Canada. And what they did is they started with a subcommittee onboarding in the summer. So say for instance, well not for instance, myself and Michelle and Heather have to run next summer or next fall for our seats. We would start having conversations and hosting like forums next summer with individuals that start pulling their petitions. And that's to let them know what it is to be a board member. So some people are pulling petitions and wanting to be on the board for the wrong reasons, or they don't understand what being on a school board means. So it's educating them up front. Then, right after they, the individuals are, are elected, then you are right there, right after meeting with them. It's the post-nomination candidates session. So once they've put in their, they've turned in their signatures and they've been validated, then you'd have the post-nomination candidate session. And then you'd have an after-election session with them. So it was very interesting how they started ahead of time. So it's almost like you're coaching the candidates before they even become board members. So I thought that was very interesting. And also I want to touch base a little bit about Ruby Bridges. She did not realize who she was and that she was famous until like 1998. She was an adult, and her therapist asked her permission to write the book that is written about her. And that's when she realized who she was and how she made an impact on the world. And that's when she decided that her passion was to go around and talk about, be an activist, and to talk about who she was and how what she did affected everyone else. But she didn't know until she was an adult that she was the Ruby Bridges. And, you know, that was her hand, her arm, holding that person's hand in the painting.
I never knew that. I thought that it was a given because she's Ruby Bridges. So that is very, very interesting. So, what, she was 9? She was about 9 years old or something?
8 or 9.
Yeah, and that's, and I'm sorry, I know we're in the board meeting, but that is very interesting that she didn't know that.
Yeah, she didn't know till she was an adult.
And is that's in the book? So, because I'm interested now in reading the book. So,
I'm not sure if that's in the book.
okay, I'm interested.
I'm not sure. Yeah, so it was, and the other thing, we learned how we have our little, we know how to get down to the front. We have our little way that we work it so that we get down to the front. We got down to the front for both Ruby Bridges and Tim Shriver, who is Maria Shriver's brother. So he's a Kennedy. So we got down front for both of them. We have our little secret way we try to get down front. So, yeah.
I wanted to add to the Ruby Bridges. She mentioned that she's gone to a couple schools and she voiced indirectly her disappointment that some of the places she went, they didn't even really know who she was.
Because they weren't teaching
About,
Yes.
all of history.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, anything else, ladies, about NSBA? If not, I do want to just share real quickly, I went to the Northeast Ohio Regional OSBA meeting, and they're having a fundraiser. The Akron Rubber Duck baseball game is on July 26th, and I will scan and send this to everyone. So if you're interested, the tickets are $40. It's a fundraiser, and it'll go back to the scholarship fund that they do, the Lester Marin Scholarship Fund. So this will go to that. And the tickets are $40, all you can eat buffet to go see the Akron Rubber Ducks play. And they gave us the date for something else. They gave us a date for fall conference is October 2nd at the Galaxy Restaurant in Brunswick, if anybody wants to attend that. Then also I sent to Dr. Reynolds the link to get more information about sending the Music Express down to Columbus for the showcase for the training we go to, Capitol Conference. So, because they were looking for more student opportunities, student acts to come down there, and so just wanted to add that. So now I will like to get a motion to for the board to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel issues, including probationary discipline and separation and release agreements and compensation.
So moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Daniels and second by Ms. Cox. Can I get roll call, please?
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes. We're just gonna go down the hall.